Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the reality recap. I'm your girl, Queen E. And today we're going to wrap up Love Island All-Stars. Honestly, because of Love is Blind, I feel like Love Island All-Stars ended like 6 months ago. But we're going to wrap that up. I'm going to give you my thoughts on that. And then we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of Love is Blind. Now, I know people have had a lot of thoughts about this season. I have a lot of thoughts too. So hopefully you guys enjoy my thoughts on the season, the interviews, and the TikTok drama, because we're definitely going to get into it. But before we do, please make sure to like this video, subscribe to this channel and the show on other platforms. We are available on all streaming platforms. Just search up the reality recap. I'll be here with y'all every Tuesday to break down what's going on in reality TV. So let's hop into Love Island All-Stars. Now, I'm not going to touch on every single thing because, like I said, I feel like that was 30 years ago at this point. But the hot moments for me was when the ex-Islanders came back to vote out one of the bottom couples. I think the bottom couples were Catherine and Omar, Elma and Sammy, and Ronnie and Harriett. Okay. So the biggest standout moment for me was when Olivia came out and she was like, yeah, so I saw some messages from Grace where she said that she'll do whatever it takes to win. My jaw was on the floor because, number one, if you're going to say something that damning, you better have the receipts, Olivia. You better have the receipts. Now, to this day, I don't know if the receipts have gone out. I have scoured the internet for these receipts, cannot find them. But at the reunion, she was standing on business. She said, I saw what I saw and I said what I said. I'm not taking it back. I said, well, y'all know me. I love a person who can stand on business. So can't be mad at that. And then everybody's like, there's this discourse about Luca being with Grace simply because he's under duress, you know, like he's under her thumb. And he says, I'm okay with that. That doesn't even bother me for real. I think it was his sister that he spoke to. He spoke to somebody and they were like, you tend to be in relationships where that's the dynamic already. So everybody is stressed for Luca. Luca's not stressed. He's okay where he's at. Okay. Now, the heat starts kicking up when Harriett chimes in and she says, Olivia, you are rich to say that Grace would have said this thing because aren't you the same woman who photoshopped your face on my photo with Ronnie? I said, oh, so that was real. Because I saw the discourse online and I think it was Will from last season, Will who's with Uma. And honestly, I can't even lie to you guys. I'm shocked that they're still together. But you know what? Godspeed. Good for y'all. Okay. He was like, yeah, I saw it. It was floating around. It definitely happened. Now, Olivia, she didn't actually deny it. I didn't see a denial, but she was looking very guilty. And I saw some photos going around. I don't know if it's the original, but I'm thinking, Olivia, if you really did do this, that is unhinged. That is unhinged. Like this is, you know, like back in the day where you used to scribble into like your notebook, me plus so-and-so. It's like that on a 2024, 2025 degree. I was gobsmacked, but okay, I guess you really want Ronnie that bad. What is the intrigue with Ronnie? We have to experience this man in person because he really gets the ladies. I really am trying to understand what's the deal with that. But then Kaz chimes in and she says that she definitely saw a screenshot from Grace. And Grace is just asking, where did y'all see this? Who sent you that? What conversation was this text with? Like what's the context, right? Now, the streets have been saying, I don't know if this is true or not, but the streets have been saying that this was a conversation she had with Joey. Now, the way that she was doing a lot of rah-rah, saying that she didn't want to talk to Joey ever again on that season, and then she even admitted on this season that she had been in contact with Joey again, and they're good friends and whatever. I'm thinking, well, I don't know. It's not out of the realm of possibility, but yeah, if you're going to make such a strong claim, I'm going to need you to back it up. Come to find out, Kaz comes to the reunion and she's like, just to clarify, the edit made it seem like I saw screenshots, but I didn't. So what screenshots was she talking about? Because that was the only time where they were talking about screenshots outside of Harriett saying that Olivia photoshopped her face onto Olivia's face. Kaz, you supposed to stay on business, girl. So why did you say that if you didn't see anything? But anyways, whatever. Then we have Catherine and Omar actually got no votes. That was a little bit of a surprise to me. Now, I will say it's not that I don't want Catherine and Omar to work out. I actually do want them to work out. It's just hard for me to see it because of Omar's run the first time around. And coming in, wanting to rekindle with Grace. To me, it just felt like Catherine was a backup option. Now, I had seen interviews post the show, and he said that they had run into each other here and there, and they had always had a little bit of a flirty encounter, but he never went further with it. And so being in the show and having some concentrated time together made him realize that there could be potential there, and he does have feelings for her. He does want to show her off to his friends and family. He does want to be I think they were exclusive on the show even before they left. So you know what? I'm rooting for them regardless. I'm glad they didn't get any votes. I guess the Islanders either had a bigger vendetta to settle, or they truly believe that there is something there between Catherine and Omar. Ultimately, it was Harriett and Ronnie who got eliminated. And I kind of felt bad for Harriett because, again, she just missed the final. Like, I think her own season, there was more time between her leaving and the final. But I think if Harriett was in the final, it would have been a tight race. I think Harriett, again, I've said, isn't like my favorite. But one thing I love about Harriett is her loyalty. She's loyal to her girls. She's loyal to her man. And I think that the greater public would appreciate that in Harriett. If there's one thing about Harriett, she is consistent. When she says something, she means it. She had a little bit of confusion with Jess and stuff, but even with Jess, she knew that Jess didn't like her. She knew that Jess pissed her off. This is the previous season, but she still was like, okay, this is what I'm hearing. This is what's happening. Can we hash it out? You know, like, I really like Harriett's principles. I think that she's a good friend. I think that she'll be a great girlfriend to Ronnie. It's up to Ronnie to treat her right. So she thought that everybody was copping out with their votes. And I mean, I guess the narrative that you can't spin the block and have it be successful is kind of tired. I do get that, but they were arguing a lot, and it did seem like whatever issues they were having on the outside were just going to continue on the inside and then again on the outside. So I can understand why a lot of the cast was like, maybe they're not going to work out. A lot of justification for voting for Elma and Sammy was the age gap, but yeah, at the end of the day, I think that the votes for either couple made sense, and ultimately that left Ronnie and Harriett to be dumped. Then we had a conversation between Elma and Curtis. If you guys happen to have forgotten what happened between them, she had a really big blow up with Curtis because of the confrontation she had with Ekin-Su. And so Elma was like, you know what? This is actually stupid for me to hold on to this grudge because my issue was with Ekin. And me and Ekin are good now. So why am I still beefing with Curtis? So she says, you know what? I'm sorry for what I said. You can tell that I didn't mean to say that. I did correct myself, which she did. And yeah, listen, I did not realize that the internet was not rocking with Elma like that. I was like, oh, I thought everybody loved when somebody stands on business. But I guess the way that Elma would come with a lot of vim, people didn't appreciate that. And that I can understand. I think at the end of the day, you just got to be true to yourself. And if Elma was doing everything that is authentically her, then stick with that, girly. Don't let the public change who you are. You know what I'm saying? So fast forward to the finale. The vote was Elma and Sammy in last place. How interesting, because Sammy has previously won the show and Elma during this season got voted favorite girl. It's almost as if when the public hears that the public likes you, the public doesn't want to grant you the win. And so for future seasons, do not desire to get the favorite vote. Clearly, it's a curse. Clearly. Because I'm even remembering on Whitney's season, things went downhill for her voting wise after they got the result that she was the favorite girl. So the favorite vote is a scam. Don't do it. Do not do it. Or at least don't be smug when you get that vote. You know what I'm saying? Then fourth place was Catherine and Omar. Honestly, valiant effort. I did not think that they were even going to make it to the final, let alone get fourth. Love that for them. Third was Ekin and Curtis. Again, Ekin has already won the show. Curtis, Curtis did not win because Amber won his season, but he got far with Maura. And one thing about Curtis, he's going to leave the show with a girlfriend. He's consistent when it comes to that. It didn't work for Love Island Games, but both Love Islands, he has come out of it with a girlfriend. So good on him. But Ekin-Su, I didn't think that she would get third. I thought it was at least going to be a second place finish for her. Ekin got a lot of support her first time around, so I thought at least half of those people would have come and voted for her, but maybe they weren't interested in Love Island All-Stars this time around. Who knows? Second place was Grace and Luca, and first place was Gabby and Casey. Listen, third time lucky for Casey. He did not lie. He came back every time to get what he wanted, and finally he succeeded. Hopefully he will take a rest from Love Island, okay? Now, can I see him and Gabby working long term? I actually can. I think that he has kind of won me over throughout this season. He has seemed to be more intentional this time around, and maybe it just was a matter of him not connecting on this level with the girls prior. So good on him. Happy for Gabby. I hope that things don't end up the same way that they ended last time, because that was a mess. But yeah, Grace and Luca not getting first place. I think that one surprised me a little bit. I know that Luca is loved. Luca was loved even before coming onto the show, but this time around, he has won over a lot more people. Hell, he won me over, okay? So I thought he would be a good contender for first place. And then Grace, maybe Grace is the one who tipped things against their favor. I don't know. I'm not quite sure. Y'all let me know who your winner of Love Island All-Stars would have been. And if you think there should be a season 3. Because at this point, I'm like, I think it's dragging a little bit. I think if they're going to make Love Island All-Stars really pop, you have to bring the big characters. You just have to. And if you can't get them, import from other shows. You know what I'm saying? Like Australia, there are how many big polarizing characters from Australia? US, there are how many? And those are the only versions that I watch. But the point is, there are so many more Love Islands to tap into. That's why games really works. Number one, there's a competition aspect that makes it a little bit more ruthless, but there are characters from all around the world. They add a different flavor. So yeah, Love Island All-Stars might need a little zhuzhing up, but Love Island Games, when that comes back on air, y'all know we will be seated here every Tuesday breaking it down. That is my show. So excited for Love Island Games. I'm pretty sure it's coming in the next few months. Whew, let's transition on to Love is Blind. Like I said, I'm going to talk about my thoughts on the show, the interviews that I've seen so far, and the TikTok drama. Now, I'm going to speak about the show as if you've watched it. So hopefully you've watched it. And if you haven't watched it, you can still listen to my thoughts and then you can go watch it later. Okay. Or you could just listen to me. That ain't no problem with me. Okay. So the first thing I wanted to talk about with Love is Blind is because the show ends in marriage. A part of me is always frustrated that year after year, they don't have premarital counseling. I think it's already so difficult to be in this process as is. They do need some kind of mental health assistance, but because it's supposed to end in marriage, they've got to have some kind of premarital counseling, some kind of therapy sessions, you know, something like that. So I did watch an interview with Nick and Vanessa. They were talking to Pay or Wait, and they said that the first season of Love is Blind, they actually lived in Atlanta for the 8 weeks that the show was filming. However, the creator, Chris Colleen, he said that it kind of made more sense for the couples to just discover their journey on their own. And they didn't need all of that intervention outside because their marriage was going to be their own marriage. So having somebody hold their hand throughout the process wasn't necessarily going to be beneficial. At least that's how I'm processing what the interview was saying. Maybe that's not exactly what he meant. That's how I perceived it. Okay. So I do understand that. I mean, at the end of the day, it is their own decision. So they need to make it being firm in their own beliefs and not have the beliefs of others being imposed onto them. But I still think it's beneficial to have some sort of advice, some sort of guidance, or at least a sounding board. You know, a neutral sounding board. Some of these people will talk to their friends and family, which we are going to talk about with this cast. And it kind of clouds your judgment or creates fears that might not be there. You know what I'm saying? So I think maybe having somebody on hand would be helpful. Something to think about for future seasons. Then, speaking of the creator of the show, Chris Colleen, he did an interview where he explained why there may seem to be a lack of diversity this time around. A lot of people on the internet have been complaining. Where are the people them? Where are the bigger girls? Where are the short kings? Well, we got one. Where are the people of color? Like, where is the diversity? I definitely think area plays a part. But Chris Colleen said in that interview, the way that Love is Blind is structured, the cast casts itself. So you can't force people to be with who they end up being with. That's like a natural thing that they do. So I do agree, and I kind of want to push back on that as well. I think that casting is so important. It's good to add that diversity from the beginning so that you are more likely to get some interesting, combinations going. If it was a matter of like all of the couples of color were not picked, then I could see that kind of being an issue for people. We did learn, I learned based on TikTok, that there were 2 other couples who did get engaged from this season that we did not see. It was Brittany and Mo. Brittany had her story with Devin and Virginia, which we're going to get into a little bit later. So she actually did get engaged to Mo. However, things didn't work out because of some things that he was doing and saying that didn't sit well with her, and so they weren't shown. And I can imagine that if there were some problematic things being said, allegedly, then maybe the show didn't want to highlight that either. And then there was Kylie and Brian, who also got engaged. If you don't know who Kylie is, Kylie had that wackadoodle shirt on, blazer shirt, crop top, bathing suit dress thing. I don't know what that was, but she actually did get engaged to Brian, and I'm not sure if they are still engaged, but they are still together in present day. So there are some storylines that we're just never going to see. That's just how the show works. Ultimately, the people choose their own partners, and so that's how we got to this point, right? So let's actually get into the couples. We're going to start back in the pods. I'm going to go to a love square that didn't make it out of the pods. We have Mason, Meg, Madison, and Alex. All of the M's have me discombobulated every single time I talk about them. But Mason had a connection with Meg and Madison. Now, I personally believe that Mason's best connection was with Meg. They spoke a lot about extraterrestrial beings and their beliefs on religion and the movies that they were into and where they see their life going, how they want to parent and all kinds of things, sexual chemistry and all that stuff. I feel like they were so aligned in that. But Mason had another connection in Madison. I didn't see them have as many like offhand conversations that he did with Meg, but they did connect on certain things like sexual chemistry. I think their educational history was kind of similar. Their dating history was kind of similar too. But if I would have had a top pick for Mason, it would have been Meg, especially because Madison had her own connection in Alex. Alex was a guy who he came in looking like a sweet cherub. I loved him initially, and then my thoughts about him changed. So he said that he grew up being like the ugly duckling. And so now that he's older, he's come into his own. He's getting a little bit more attention from women. And so it's kind of new territory for him to be in this place dating so many girls at one time. But he did connect with Madison. Now, the problem that they were having together was the fact that she is an avoidant and he is anxious. And these are their attachment styles, right? So she's an avoidant based on the fact that she grew up in a house with substance abuse and stuff like that. And so she has lost people through drug addiction. And it's just a very sad upbringing for her. My heart really does hurt for her. But that has kind of taught her to dissociate a lot from people, even naturally, but definitely in conflict. And so for Alex, that was a big problem because he's very anxious. He wants to prove his affection for somebody. He wants to constantly tug at the person when he feels like they're pulling away. And so that push and pull is definitely going to be an issue for them in the long run. So eventually it comes to a point where you have to make your decision, right? Mason was asked by Madison, like, yo, what's good? You have your options. I have my options, but we have to narrow it down. He foolishly says that he's going to commit to Madison. Now, Madison says at the time that he said it, she didn't believe him. I'm not quite sure what that was all about, but she didn't reciprocate. And in fact, she went and she told the other women, oh, he's still my number 2. And I'm thinking, why would you put him in the corner to commit to you just for you to be like, yeah, I'm not really feeling him like that anyways? Like I was so confused. And with Madison, I'm sorry, there was just some things that she would do and say that made me think there was like a nice, nasty side to her. And I'm thinking, Oof, this would have been a rough go for anybody at this point. So she goes back and she talks to Alex, and she says, yeah, Mason was trying to commit to me, but I didn't really believe him. I felt like I saw his true colors. And then Alex is trying to empathize, saying he understands where Mason was coming from. It's a really tough decision. There's a lot going on. We're overstimulated, you know? And she didn't like that. She did not like that at all. And it kind of created this contentious situation for both of them. And ultimately, Alex decides that he doesn't want to pursue the connection with Madison. Now, Madison did an interview with E, and she said even if Alex would have proposed, she would have said no, because there were just things that were missing on her side. And because that conversation about Mason, she left it feeling invalidated. Now, I'm not quite sure if she really would have said no. To me, it felt like she wanted Alex. To me, it did. It really did. And so I think it was an issue of like, oh, I have put my heart out there. I feel like I now have egg on my face. Let me find a way to make myself feel a little bit better. I'm just going to be honest. Because she even went back to the women's quarters and she's like, you know what? I'm just not at peace with this decision. And I think I'm going to leave. That's the best thing for me. Baby, you got dumped. There's no other thing to do but leave. So I was a little bit confused with that one. But anyways, we also saw an interview from Alex. He said that he felt like there was bullying that came from Madison. And since he had been bullied in the past, he felt uncomfortable with that negativity coming from Madison. I don't know if it's fair to say that she was bullying Mason. I don't know. We didn't see all the interaction, so maybe he saw more than what we were privy to see or hear. But then some people on TikTok were sharing yearbooks. And Alex came into the pods saying that he was bullied because he had really bad acne and he had this like big afro or whatever. Baby, that's not what TikTok said. TikTok was like, he had a slick back hairstyle and his skin was just fine. And I was like, so Alex, where did this come from? Maybe he meant before high school. Because those high school yearbooks, it wasn't giving Curly Sue with acne. It wasn't giving that. I'm not saying he's a liar. I don't know. I wasn't there. I didn't go to high school with him. So I don't know. Maybe it was junior high. Maybe that's what he meant to say. But anyways, Mason obviously now only has Meg as his option. And so he goes to Meg, and Meg, I'm so glad that Meg chose to stand on business. I thought she was going to fold. She was like, you know what? I did have a great connection with you, but at this point, you're saying a lot of things to me that I just cannot believe because you've been put in a position where your decision was taken from you. So am I just a backup option? Did you feel like you made a mistake only after Madison decided to dump you? Like, what's the deal? And so it's interesting how in the last few seasons we've seen people revert to their backup option and stuff. But this time around, it seems like people were not going for that. Alex was like, you know what? I'm not even going to force this thing. If it's not for me, it's not for me. Meg was like, I don't want to be a backup option. That's not my vibe. I want somebody who wants me first and foremost, always, you know, and she stood on that. And I really appreciated that. That was great to see. Moving on to another couple, we have Daniel and Taylor. So Daniel came in being the short king that he is, saying, you know what, I've had my woes in dating because a lot of women like a 6-foot man. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm 5'10". I'm 5'10", so I needs me a tall man. Now, is my man like 6'5" or something? No, he's not, but he's a little bit taller than me, and I'm not going to lie. It feels good. It feels good. But love is not contingent on height, y'all. We got to drop that. It's not all about height, okay? Taylor is a colonoscopy nurse, I think she is. She's a nurse of some kind. And she has a lot of insecurities. She's opened up about being in a relationship where her boyfriend wouldn't even post her on social media, but he would be under a lot of women's posts and stuff. And so this becomes important because Daniel and Taylor talked about a lot of interests. She loves Taco Bell. She loves Christmas. They had a lot of commonalities when it comes to the different Christmas traditions that they want to do and whatever. And then after the reveal, because he proposed and she said yes, after the reveal, she discovers that she finds him very familiar. And she may have met him before or seen him before. Sorry. She may have seen him before. She believes that he followed and unfollowed her shortly before coming on to the show, and had basically a cheat code on how to make himself the perfect partner for Taylor. Now, this is kind of a far-fetched idea because how would he have known that she's going on the show? Everybody's talking about Minnesota being such a small place, and a lot of people have dated other people. I literally saw a TikTok of a guy who went to prom with Molly and he went to prom with Sarah, and his cousin is Molly, and there was another girl, I think it was Taylor. He said, we have 32 mutual friends. So it's possible that maybe you had come across Daniel's profile before, or maybe he just seemed very, very familiar. Because even after the fact, they were making jokes that were like same. And it was like, I think you guys just happen to have a lot of similarities. Like, it is what it is. Now, if I'm to throw my theory in the ring of conspiracy theories, I don't think that he was stalking her. But if we are to run with that narrative, I'm pretty sure when these producers recruit for these shows, they often will follow the person on social media. So it could be the fact that Daniel saw a mutual follower that was a producer, and maybe he deduced the fact that she was going to be on the show. And so he went and did a little bit of research and then unfollowed her. I don't know. Big stretch, but stranger things have happened. Y'all remember Lydia? Y'all remember Uche? Uche was convinced that Lydia followed him on the show. And honestly, it was kind of looking like she did. So, yeah. And again, everybody's saying that Minnesota is a big small town. That's what they were saying. Like, it's a big city, but it has small town vibes, especially if you are in the dating scene in a certain age bracket and whatnot. You are going to run into a lot of similar people. Crossing paths is not out of the ordinary. It's not something that's unfathomable. So yeah. Anyways, she decides not to spiral about it, and they decide to move on with their relationship. I would be lying if I said that Daniel hasn't won me over. Seeing his family, seeing how wholesome those people are. His parents are so sweet. Oh my gosh. We got to meet his sister. He talked about his sister in the pods. He said she's blind. And so this process was really intriguing for me and whatnot. And oh my heart. It was just so beautiful. Taylor's parents were kind of skeptical. The mom more so than the dad. The mom was like, you kind of took me out of the process, and I'm scared for my daughter, basically. And they brought in Daniel's parents as well to talk to Taylor's parents. And I think that put the mom at ease. And it was just beautiful. I'm rooting for y'all. Y'all better not disappoint me, because Love is Blind, as soon as I start rooting for somebody, some foolishness starts to happen. Please. Not this time around, Daniel. It took me long enough to root for somebody on this damn season. Okay. Let's move on to Joey and Monica. Joey and Monica, to me, immediately was not feeling them. Actually, I don't even think I'm still feeling them, to be honest. But Joey has this like big exuberant personality, whatever. Monica kind of matches that as well. And I was thinking, what a quirky couple. Child, when we meet her family, when we meet Monica's family, it's same. I don't know if quirkiness is inherited, but everybody in this family is quirky. And I'm like, you know what? Hell yeah. Hell yeah. It felt like a perfect match, but on a friendship level. I question their romantic connection. Romance looks different for everybody. So what I perceive shouldn't be what they perceive as romance. But I'm struggling to see some kind of like passion, sensuality, sexual chemistry, anything romantic. I'm just not seeing it for them. So I'm wondering, like, is that going to kick in at any point? Like, what's the tea? He shares about having OCD. And that, he believes, stems from the fact that in his younger years, he lacked control. And so he wanted to like desperately control certain things. And he can control how many steps he takes, or how he holds certain things, or what number of breaths he takes in a minute, or, like really crazy things like that. But that's how OCD works for a lot of people. It's almost debilitating. He was prescribed medication at a young age, but he decided to get grips of it himself. And it seems like that has worked. Now, where Joey was the MVP for me was when he met Monica's sister. So Monica's sister is dating one of Monica's ex-flings. Long story, child. But anyways, apparently Monica's sister never approves of her friends or her boyfriends. Monica's sister's name is Nicole. And I'm thinking, Nicole, do you have that good of discernment that nobody really is good enough for your sister? Or is it giving hater? Why did Joey clock her immediately? He was like, well, if she's never approved of anyone and she also feels like being the older sister, she's older by 5 years, she should have been married first. Maybe she's jealous. I've never seen anybody be so brazen enough to call somebody else's family member out the way that Joey just did, at least on camera. I said, well, brava. It could be a reach, but I love the fact that Joey was like, this is what I feel. I'm going to say it. I'm going to be true to myself. I'm going to be authentic. That's one thing about Joey. He has been himself from the beginning. I haven't seen any posturing from him. I haven't seen any acting, any antics. Like, he is just himself. He felt something. He said it. And I said, that is very bold. But honestly, kudos to you. And maybe that's a testament to their relationship. He can say anything that is honest, and they just have that kind of rapport. And that's a good sign. That's a really good sign. They laugh a lot. They're honest with each other. I just want that romantic aspect to kick in at some point. Let's move on to Devin, Brittany, and Virginia. So Devin, he is a basketball coach. Brittany was also a varsity basketball coach. And if I'm not mistaken, they both used to play basketball as well. And Virginia is in the mix. She's not really into all that basketball stuff. She's more of a soft life babe. You know, she don't do all of that. She likes her things cutesy, demure, right? So Brittany and Devin, to me, had a really strong connection. Where things took a turn was when she shared her recent self-discovery, which has to do with her sexuality. I don't know why that was so hard to get together. So she has had certain encounters with women in the past, and one of her relationships actually got to the point where her partner believed that they could get married. And that's when she had the revelation that maybe marriage for her, not in general, but for her, was between herself and a man. Now, Devin, he had a lot of thoughts. He had a lot of questions. He wasn't sure if she was going to eventually want a woman in the future, all kinds of things. And so Brittany didn't really like that answer. She wanted him to be a lot more accepting, a lot more understanding, and he was ultimately too rigid for her. She did an interview with Entertainment Weekly, and she said that after reflecting on the conversation, she actually felt like his response was immature. Now, I've seen a lot of discourse online on whether or not his response was immature. I think it's one of those things where we're not going to come to a consensus. I think that, yeah, it is kind of hurtful to be falling for somebody, and then that one thing that is intrinsic to who you are is what gets the person to no longer want to explore that connection. Like, that's hurtful. That is painful. But she says at the end of the day, she is firm in who she is. She's going to keep exploring herself, whatever that means to her. And so ultimately, it was best for them to just not even go down that road. So he decides to commit to Virginia. The problem with Virginia is that he's been wanting more vulnerability from her. I feel like to this point, we haven't seen enough. And he said, I would need that before I even propose. Well, then why did you propose? He told both women about, this is what I wanted to talk about too. He told both women about a situation where he had severe pain and was no longer able to play basketball. And so to try to mitigate that, he took ibuprofen, and then he got addicted to it. He was very dependent on the ibuprofen. Now, people on the internet, a lot of people who are apparently really up on their medical facts, they're like, you can't get addicted to ibuprofen. Now, I don't know. You can't ask me about stuff like that. I have literally no idea. I'm the person who's afraid of Tylenol. When I was a kid and I broke my ankle, literally broke my ankle at school playing soccer, I walked home. I do not like medication. When I broke my hand, I broke my hand roller skating. Clearly, you could tell that I should just stay away from sports. I broke my hand roller skating. I went home and I went to bed, and I went to the hospital the next day, and they're like, yeah, girl, it's broken. I'm so terrified of medication just because I feel like I do have an addictive type of personality, and I just don't want to become dependent on those things. So I don't know if you can or cannot be addicted to ibuprofen. I just know the man said he was abusing the substance, and eventually in his walk with God, he discovered that he should just go and get actual professional help to see what the root of the problem is. Found the root of the problem, did his surgery, bing, bam, boom. Now he's fine. So he and Virginia go out of the pods. I don't know if she likes him for real. I'm just not feeling it. They have an age gap. He's about 6 years younger than her, I think. And he was younger than Brittany as well. So that was going to be his storyline regardless. And, they're making jokes. And I'm thinking, okay, that's cute and all. But I think the jokes are exposing how you really feel about the thing. But you just are too afraid to talk about the thing. Now they talk about finances and stuff. And basically, he has a lot of student loan debt and medical debt. Even before he said that, Virginia proposed a prenup. And he was like, I don't really know how I feel about that. That's not even something that I've thought about before. I think this is something that everybody should think about. And I think we should take away the stigma that prenups are a preparation for a divorce or that they are meant to be predatory. A prenup is literally just a safeguard. The same way you would purchase insurance, health insurance, life insurance, car insurance. It's a safety net for the worst case scenario, but not like the worst case scenario is definitely going to happen. No. So for him, you could tell that this is not a solo belief. His family feels the same way too. They're concerned about this whole prenup thing. I'm just thinking, well, you want to become the CEO of the company that you work at right now. Wouldn't you want to make sure that if push came to shove and a divorce happened, that at least your assets aren't being exploited by your ex-partner or something like that? Or God forbid, it ends up being a fraudulent relationship down the line. If you cannot get an annulment, at least in the divorce, you know that the terms that you agreed on at the beginning are being adhered to at the end. I just think it's beneficial to make an agreement in love rather than being in a contentious situation at the end when there's a lot of animosity because of whatever transpired in your relationship. That's all. It's also important to note that Brittany, in her interview with Entertainment Weekly, said that she got the impression that Devin was a mama's boy and immature. Now, I don't know if I'm seeing the mama's boy thing, but I do think that Devin right now is going off of vibes a lot with Virginia. And to me, that might be a little bit of like an immature way to proceed with this thing. Why haven't you thought about prenups? Why haven't you thought about the financial consequences that your decisions have gotten you in and what that would look like in your marriage and stuff? Like, there's just a lot of things that I feel like Devin hasn't thought of. And even his family was saying, well, have you guys thought of this and how are you going to handle that? And what are you going to do here? And what are you going to do there? I think they also know that maybe Devin needs a little bit of a push in the right direction. So I'm wondering if we're going to see a little bit more of that in the next drop. I need more from Devin and Virginia. I feel like Virginia is definitely holding back. I don't know if it's something within her that she doesn't want to share, or if it's something about Devin that she's not quite sold on fully. I just need the tea. I need to know what's good. David was dating Lauren and Molly, and he said online that he also was dating Taylor for a while. David was the guy who came into every pod being like, oh, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? To him, he thinks it's a joke. To me, that was the first sign of trouble. And it has been trouble ever since with David. David made a joke to Lauren saying that because she's over 30, she might not be attractive anymore. Also on the honeymoons, because he does end up being with Lauren, he's like, oh yeah, there's nothing that I like really dislike about you. Maybe like your hair, this new hairstyle. Like, there's a lot of negging that comes from David, and it makes me feel uncomfortable. But Lauren wanted it so bad that she literally went to him and was like, you like Molly so much. What's wrong with me? What's wrong with our connection? Like, I feel like you're my number one. Why aren't I your number one? And so eventually he was like, okay, well, I guess you'll be my number one then. I think his connection with Molly made a lot more sense. He came in saying, you know, I'm this kind of guy on the outside. I tend to be focused on aesthetics. He does work in, I forget what it is exactly that he works in, but there's women who have a lot of augmentations, Botox, whatever. So he does admit that his impressions on attractiveness have been distorted since working in that field, right? He told all of this to Molly. He said that he learned from his mother that he should be a man of integrity. And in the previous years, he hadn't been a man of integrity. He cheated on previous partners and stuff. I think he was so much more real, so much more authentic with Molly that he probably should have just picked Molly. But he picked Lauren, in my opinion, because she is that more like cookie cutter. This is the type of girl that I'm supposed to marry, right? So outside of the pods, apparently Lauren has dated a few of David's friends. Now, he can't even admit that these are his real friends. To me, it sounds like these are acquaintances. So why he's having a cow about it is beyond me. He meets up with her friends and he's still like, no, but you dated my friend and that's a problem for me. Apparently that guy even lives in the couple's apartment that everybody moves into. So that's a little bit awkward. But the friends are like, they weren't even in a real relationship like that. Like, it was so casual. It wasn't that deep. And it gets to the point where David is like, well, my friends have an issue with maybe meeting you because you dated our friend. And how could you really be serious about marriage if you were still in a relationship coming into the show? Apparently his sister has a problem with this too. Like, his sister is such a thorn in my sign. It's a thorn in my sign. A thorn in my side, because he uses his sister as such a crutch. He came into the pods like, oh, I didn't tell my sister I was coming on the show because of how she'd potentially feel about it. Her opinion means a lot to him. But apparently his dad's opinion doesn't mean as much, because he's like, who cares what my dad says? I'm a grown ass man. Okay, well, who cares what your sister says? You're a grown ass man. What? So anyways, apparently his sister now has an issue with Lauren because how could she have a boyfriend before coming on the show and whatever. And Lauren is like, I swear to you, I was not in a relationship coming in. And David is trying to make it seem like because he was single for the last 4 years, he is prepared to be married because he took his time to be on his own and whatever. What were you doing in those 4 years? What were you doing just before coming on the show? I do not believe that this man was not paying any attention to any woman for the last 4 years. Absolute lie. If anybody wants to come out of the woodworks and tell a story about David, come with some receipts so we know that you're telling the truth. But David, you better have your story straight, because the way that he is cooking Lauren, I'm like, what is this about? My theory could be the fact that he really isn't attracted to Lauren like that. He made it a point to say she could be boring because she's a teacher and whatnot. And I'm thinking, and in the pods, I felt like he got a lot more excited whenever he would hear that there was potentially a bad girl side from Lauren. And he had a lot more sexual chemistry with Molly from the jump. I think that's what he was looking for. I also saw some people theorizing online that he could have seen Molly's social media and maybe he would be more attracted to her. And so now he has to make up some kind of excuse to not want to pursue the connection with Lauren. I think a lot of possibilities could be true. We just have to wait and see what the outcome is here. But if I were Lauren, first of all, I wouldn't have even gotten this far with David, but whatever, we're here now. If I were Lauren and this man is refusing to believe anything that I say and is taking the word of people who have never met me before off of assumptions, leave it alone. Stop dating this man. Because why are we going to go into a union where you cannot trust me? That's insane. You're claiming to love me. You claim to want to marry me, but you're going to believe everybody else's word before you believe mine. And on top of that too, even if he comes around and he's like, you know what? Fine, I believe you. There's going to be another instance where somebody brings up a concern and he's going to value their opinion over his wife's opinion. At least that's the pattern that we're seeing right now. I wouldn't want to take the risk. I really would not. So at this point, I would sack it. Lauren, you begged for this man's affection. That was mistake number one. But you're now seeing the consequences of begging for this man's affection. Girl, do the right thing and cut it now. Wrap it up. Last but not least, Ben and Sarah. Now, I might say some controversial things. I'm not going to lie to you. We'll see where this goes. So Ben and Sarah in the pods, to me, were kind of just like background characters for a long time. I saw them for a second in like episode 2, and then they disappeared, and then they came back, and I was just like, what is this couple doing here? Apparently they have a really important storyline, okay? So in the pods, Ben shares the fact that he is not religious. He just has a faith, right? He does believe in God, but, is open to other possibilities, other realities, whatever. Sarah, on the other hand, was raised, I think it was Catholic. And over time, she has denounced religion and just believes in a higher power, that kind of stuff. Like she's open to a lot of possibilities. She also has a problem with Christianity because of the hypocrisy. Listen, I'm a Christian girl. Felt. Okay, felt. So she has a sister who is LGBTQ, and the thoughts that some Christians have about that, she does not appreciate that. And so it's been really hard for her to accept some Christian beliefs and stuff, which I totally understand. Ben assures her that he's the type of guy to not be focused on those kinds of things. He accepts those kinds of people. And I'm not going to lie to you. My ignorance with this whole thing didn't even realize the verbiage he was using when referring to people who are LGBTQ. And a lot of people were saying, he's making it seem like he doesn't have a problem, but the way in which he speaks about that community makes it sound as if he others them and stuff. Now, I don't know. I was educated on the internet. I was educated about that. So interesting thing that people noted. Then they speak about social justice. And she says, you know, these are things that are very important to me. I kind of had ignorance when it came to voting until the George Floyd situation happened. This was at the beginning of the pandemic. Whew, rough times. And so it is important for her to be with a partner who is going to fight alongside her regarding certain social justice matters, right? And initially I was like, okay, Sarah. Yeah, I love that. I would find it very hard to be with somebody who isn't going to fight for the rights of other people, no matter who they are. You know, no matter what the right is. For me, I feel like human rights are important over anything else. So I would need to be partnered with that kind of person. And so I praised Sarah for having that stance. Ben is very apathetic voting wise. He's apathetic voting wise. He's like indifferent. He's like, oh, these things don't really bother me. Like, who cares? Whatever. Right. Then he ends up saying, you know what? I do understand that my ignorance is a problem for you. I'm not going to give you the burden of having to teach me. I'm going to do the work for myself. Now, it took seeing some people breaking it down on TikTok for me to see that it actually was problematic that, number one, he didn't really side anywhere. And number two, she had that strong stance initially and then just accepted the fact that he was just going to work on it, right? I think that oftentimes people miss their privilege. And the privilege that I saw was initially in Ben. The fact that he's in a position where a lot of these social justice issues genuinely do not affect him. And so he doesn't have to do anything to enact change because change doesn't do anything for him. If anything, change might put some of his own privileges in jeopardy. And that is something that a lot of people don't want to accept. And I hear that. Do I hear that? Anyways, I understand the thought process. Let me say that. Then some people expose the privilege that Sarah has, because at the end of the day, you can come and have that strong belief like, I don't want to be with somebody who doesn't fight for these certain social justice issues, whatever. But at the end of the day, she still accepted somebody who already said they don't fight for certain issues. And I think that it is a privilege to be able to accept somebody who is apathetic to certain things. Because if it was somebody like me, I mean, I'm quite visibly a minority in more ways than one. I don't have that luxury. It is important for me to be with somebody who would fight for the causes that affect me because, like, you must. But at the end of the day, some causes might not affect Sarah in the way that it would affect the people that she would be fighting on behalf of. And that is a privilege in itself. I still root for Sarah. I do think that that was a great conversation. I don't think that I've actually seen that conversation on Love is Blind. So I love that she brought it up. I love that she's so passionate about certain social justice issues. It's also important to note that she had a privilege as well in that conversation. And it was just interesting to see that she has the luxury of accepting his stance, whereas somebody else might not. So anyways, they proceed to their reveal. I believe this was one of the best reveals. The man booked it to this woman. He ran to her. They hugged, they were kissing. It felt so natural, so organic. I loved it. It was a beautiful, beautiful reveal. As time went on, we got to see Ben's friends. They are a mixed bag of people. I mean, all walks of life, different beliefs, different sexual orientations. Like, it seemed like he really was the guy that he said he was in the pods until Sarah says she had seen something, or her friend had seen something on TikTok where a girl was crying, basically being upset at the fact that Love is Blind was highlighting storylines of men who are quite problematic around the city. Now, I was thinking, oh my gosh, what a shock. Like, does Ben even know that this is about him? He knew. He knew, and he didn't say it to Sarah. And I'm thinking to myself, now, how did you think that that was going to pan out for you, sir? Like, you're going to have to address it at some point, somehow. But anyways, he's like, oh, she was overreacting and whatever. So I went and I watched the TikToks. And sure enough, she was crying. She was saying that she had an encounter with him years ago. It didn't end well, but she didn't detail exactly what happened. And she hasn't spoken to him since. However, because the cast of Love is Blind was exposed before the show was airing, women were just coming left, right, and center talking about Ben and some of the other castmates and how they have had horrible experiences with these people. And so she was crying on behalf of herself and other people. So I was thinking, for somebody to be that emotional, I would imagine that things really went left, either with her or with somebody she's having empathy for. And so I need to know, Ben, what's good? Because it's giving wishy-washy. It's giving a little bit sketchy. Like, I'm not quite sure what's happening. It feels like Ben has a mask on, mask off. Okay? Mask off. What's the deal with Ben? Somebody tell me, okay? That girl said that, I think in the initial video, she did say that it could be perceived as an overreaction, but overreaction or not, if somebody's so distraught to the point where it brings them to tears, I'm going to investigate more. So I hope that Sarah definitely investigates more. I hope that she takes stock that maybe Ben is hiding something. I don't know. Ben, it's giving very sketchy. Very, very sketchy. But all in all, I will say the first batch of these episodes, I was asleep. Eyes glazed over. I was struggling. Second batch, now that's where the tea was. These last 3 episodes, it was giving. Absolutely giving. I think we're diving into conversations we have not seen before. I'm so intrigued to see if Lauren ever gets the opportunity to talk to David's friends. Is David ever going to get over the fact that his friends have a problem with her dating one of their friends? Like, it's a whole madness, a whole madness. But I'm excited. I want to know how is it going to be when the couples meet I always call them rejects, but they're not rejects. The pod squad. How's it going to go when they meet the pod squad? Who is going to have a wandering eye? What's going to... There's a lot to unpack with this season, so I'm ready. I'm so ready. I'm sat. I'm going to have my snacks ready, and y'all better be back to see what happens. That's it for me, y'all. I'm over here sweating because these people got me worked up. I cannot imagine where this season could go at this point. But you got to tune in next Tuesday to see my thoughts on everything. Please, please, please make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Subscribe here on YouTube. Subscribe on the other platforms. The support is greatly appreciated. Again, the reality recap is available on all streaming platforms. Your girl would be very happy to see that you are liking, subscribing, and sharing with all of your friends. Again, I will be here every Tuesday to break things down. So I'm going to love you and leave you and see you in the next one.